Suspected terrorists on Monday opened fire on mourners in Kwapel village of Borno State, killing at least 15 people. The incident is the latest in a spate of violence in the region blamed on jihadist groups, which have escalated attacks in recent weeks. More than 50 people were killed last week. Fighters from Islamic State West Africa province stormed the village near the town of Chibok on several motorcycles, opening fire on residents who had gathered to mourn the death of a community leader in the village. The Nigerian military has now appointed a new commander for its fight against insurgency in the northeast after renewed attacks in the last 4 months that have killed several civilians and soldiers in the region. Major General Abdusalam Abubakar becomes the 15th commander in the fight against Boko Haram ISWAP insurgency in the northeast. News Center's correspondent Umaru Kirawa joins me now to provide update on the situation. Hello, Umaru. What more can you tell us about this tragedy?
Yes, it's an unfortunate tragedy that people of Borno State continue to witness in recent times after their renewed hope of improved sense of security, safety, and so on and so forth. All of a sudden, the resurgence of attack and, of course, the use of technology by the terrorists, particularly the use of improvised explosive devices. And, of course, if you could remember vividly, we have been reporting with regard to the use of drones by the terrorists in recent times. But majorly, this time around, the terrorists are devising the use of improvised explosive devices to kill people, particularly on major highways like the Maiduguri-Dipaga-Borungala Road, the Maiduguri-Damboa up to Chibok Road, the Maiduguri-Bama up to Goza, Pulka, Kirawa, and other major road networks within the state capital, which is raising so many questions with regard to the issue of safety, issue of security in the northeast, and of course in the Lake Chad, because so many atrocities continue to happen in communities. Some of them largely unreported because of the inaccessibility nature of the road to some of these localities. But it's really unfortunate that we are witnessing the resurgence of attacks in Borno State.
Yeah, Umar, I do worry about the lack of access to some of these communities. So there is a speculation that the scale, just like you alluded to, might be higher of attacks than is being reported. The governor, some time ago, raised the alarm, weeks ago actually, that the worst days were returning, seeming to come back in full circle. Would you agree there is some retrogression in the fight against the insurgency and insecurity in Borno State? And is there perhaps some hope with the emergence of a new army chief?
Well, there is a hope, but I believe, and that is the major belief of so many people, including some experts which I was able to speak with, there is really a need for change in strategy, change in tactics, particularly with regard to the operations of the military. Major successes have been recorded. Over 300,000 terrorists have surrendered with their families and loved ones, and they are with the government, you know. And a lot really needs to be done to cater to these people, which there is issue of overstretched facilities. There is issue of serious concerns with regard to even their means of sustainability, means of survival, providing means for them to sustain themselves, and of course, tackling those in the bush. People in Borno are saying that the military really need to embrace offensive now, since these people are really creating serious havoc to them. The military needs to take the war to them. And some people are saying that even if they take the war to them, one major problem is the issue of porous border. And another problem that will further compound this situation is the relationship between Nigeria and Niger. Up to now, the military leader is there, and the relationship of Nigeria and Niger is something that really needs to be worked on diplomatically, so as to improve security of communities in the border areas.
All right, Mark, thank you very much for the update. I wish we had more time. I do have more questions for you, but hopefully we can speak again soon. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you.
The National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party has held an emergency meeting at the party secretariat in Abuja. The meeting follows a wave of defections that has rattled the opposition party in recent months. Former vice presidential candidate of the party, Ifeanyi Okowa, and the governor of Delta State, Sheriff Oborevwori, were on Monday welcomed officially to the ruling APC, sealing their defection to the party. Their defection led to the collapse of the PDP's political structure in Delta, one of its long-standing strongholds. The development is said to have triggered concern within the party's leadership. Now, political analysts are insinuating that Nigeria may be gradually drifting towards a one-party state. For some perspective, we're joined now by Tony Cole. He's a chieftain of the All Progressive Congress. Thank you very much for giving us your time. This narrative, I had a conversation yesterday with two learned gentlemen, and they said it was too early to be talking about the gravitation to a one-party state. What is your perception, sir? Okay, I think he couldn't get me the first time. So I'm just asking your view of this talk that Nigeria is tilting towards a one-party state with the massive defection we're seeing in recent times.
Okay. So I know that that's, well, first, good evening, and I know that that's the biggest fear that Nigerians have today, that we're moving into a one-party state. I would say first and foremost that Nigeria cannot afford a one-party state, and I don't think that that's where we're going to get to. I believe that we will get to a dominant party state, which is not new. PDP was once a very dominant party. We never got to a one-party state then. APC is now a dominant party, and it's not going to get to a one-party state. That's what my belief would be.
Disseminated is the word some people are using, broken to pieces. All other parties in the country, there is internal conflict, internal fights. The Labour Party is always at the court. The PDP itself is also struggling. I can't remember other parties now, but we know there are multiple. If APC's power is so strengthened by this defection, I mean, doesn't it make, plainly, doesn't it make it valid that people are concerned and that from all indication, opposition in this country is almost dead?
So I agree that people are concerned, but I would always say this, conflict and internal conflicts always have a way of coming to an end. So let's take PDP, for example. I believe that there was a meeting today which raised the issue of the defections. And that's a wake-up call. And I think for PDP, it's been a long time coming. There was a need to wake up. And I believe that this latest defections, maybe one or two more coming, will definitely drive home that fact that they need to wake up. We do not and cannot afford to be in a country where there is absolutely zero opposition. No country survives that way, which means that people are going to have to sit up. So let's take three parties, for example. One, PDP. There needs to be a wake-up call. That wake-up call has happened. Labour has been decimated very, very badly, which means that they have to restructure and come back together if they want to be relevant at all moving forward. And then you still have ABGA within the southeast states. ABGA has a very long history, especially within the Anambra state axis. Will they restructure and will they be able to get one or two other states to come along? I don't think we'll get a one-party state. PDP still happens to be the largest of all of them. But to get to 36 states, all APC, I don't see that happening.
Okay, let's talk about the question of ideology. Some persons say this defection has nothing to do with ideology. It's the same where the bread is buttered, where will benefit them more politically, and that's why they are defecting. And perhaps the challenges that bedeviled the other parties that made them leave might creep up in the APC this time around. What are the buffers that the APC is putting in place to ensure that these people are genuinely coming to do something positive with the platform?
Okay, that's a very, very good question. And the first aspect of it is that the issue of ideology has never been strong within the Nigerian political system. It has always been one about who is more likely to win and where are you most likely to be when the spoils are divided. And so ideology has not been something that has been strong. But it's something that has to develop. You know, Nigeria's democracy is still very, very young. But if there's one thing that we must continue to push, is that we must get to that point where ideology becomes a very, very key and central discussion. And we're not there yet. And so what you see basically is an alignment of which powers and which political agenda will drive personal political interest forward the most. And so people align that way. That's what we are seeing, and that's what we will continue to see for the next couple of years. However, it's not sustainable. At some point, people are going to have to take a line to say that, you know what, this is what we believe in, and this is where we stand. And when we get there, you will see a lot more progress in our democratic institutions. We're not there yet, but we'll have to head in that direction.
Will we ever get there? We will ever get to a point where people will actually stand up on ideology in Nigeria as presently constituted?
I believe that you will. Okay, and so first and foremost, you are finding that new players come into the political arena every single day, and they come for a particular reason. Some people come because they are looking as to how to develop their own political interests. Others come because they want to come and serve. But at some point, people are going to have to sit down to say, what differentiates me from the others, or what brings us together around a common goal. And I believe 100% that some of us are driving that agenda of common goal, service to the people, and something that is different. And that's what we must stand for. So if not this, we're wasting our time in a political arena if we do not believe that the future is going to be different from today. And I believe 100% that we're here to create a different tomorrow and a different future. So yes, ideology is going to be at the center of the conversation. It's not there yet, but it's definitely going to come.
Let me act like a child and put my pinkies across here in faith that your optimism will come to pass. But before I let you go, I want to ask this one. Former Delta State Governor Ifeanyi Okowa has claimed that the ex-Vice President Atiku Abubakar is preparing to leave the PDP ahead of the 2027 election. We all know Atiku is no newcomer to switching partisan loyalties, but how could that tilt the balance if it does happen?
Did you say that he's poised to leave the PDP?
Yes, that's the understanding that's been put out.
Okay, so in that particular case, first and foremost, I think the best person to answer that question will be Atiku. I haven't heard that he's poised to leave the PDP, and if he's leaving the PDP to go where? And that's what the issue is. But he's the best person to answer it. I don't think it makes, for me, I don't think leaving the PDP is going to solve anything. If at all, he needs to remain there, he needs to strengthen it, he needs to bring people together, and he needs to chart a new course for the PDP that sees him as a statesman, central figure of the PDP. I don't know whether he wants to run again, but I don't think leaving the PDP at this point in time is a decision that should be taken. That's my personal opinion, but I haven't heard that he wants to leave.
I did say this was the last question, but I just remembered from my previous question, I don't think you answered that part of it, about the APC. Is there internal mechanism being put in place to checkmate the excesses that is invariably going to come up from those who are moving in droves to the APC?
I think every political party, let me even change that, every institution and every organization must have internal controls. And the bigger you get, without those controls, the more likely you're going to become a damaged party moving forward, and you will be abused. So for the sake of the APC moving forward, especially with people who are coming in from different factions, internal controls must be there, and that has to be driven. If not, it's a failed project. And so internal controls must happen. If not, there will just be division, and a house that is divided just cannot stand.
The implications for the 2027 elections, this defection generally, what would be your thinking? What would you sum for 2027?
I think what these defections would then do basically is that for any opposition to come, that opposition has to be formidable, the opposition has to be strong, the opposition must carry a message to Nigerians that there's something different that they're bringing onto the table, different players, different group, different ideology, different statement, different language. And so if an opposition cannot bring that onto the table, then Nigerians will say, what's the point? If this is who they see and this is all they know and everybody looks the same, then they might as well just continue with what they see. So I think at this point in time, what Nigerians should be looking for and looking out for is who is going to be able to come, who will stand, and what message will they speak that is different from what we're seeing today.
Thank you very much for speaking with us.
You're welcome.
Thank you for staying with us. You're watching tonight on News Central. A reminder of our top stories. Suspected terrorists opened fire on mourners in Boronu village, killing at least 15 persons. Court grants federal government request to shield witnesses' identities in Nnamdi Kanu's trial. Prime Minister Mark Carney wins in Canada pivotal election, securing a fourth term for the Liberal Party. The trial of the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, resumed today at the Federal High Court in Abuja. During proceedings, the federal government, represented by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Adegboyega Awomolo, presented key witnesses responsible for the arrest of Kanu in 2015, who testified on his activities bordering on the operation of Radio Biafra. Our correspondent Joshua Imarai was in court and now reports.
The detained leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, appeared before the Federal High Court in Abuja on Tuesday as his trial resumed before Justice James Omotosho. At the commencement of proceedings, the prosecution presented his first witness, an operative of the Department of State Services identified only as AAA. The witness, who testified behind the screen to protect his identity, told the court that he led the team that arrested Kanu in Lagos on October 14, 2015. The witness also submitted video recordings of Kanu's interrogation, along with an extrajudicial statement in which Kanu allegedly admitted to establishing Radio Biafra in London without registering it with Nigerian authorities. The court also admitted in evidence 4 suitcases said to contain items recovered during the 2015 arrest, including personal effects and broadcast equipment reportedly used for Radio Biafra. At the close of proceedings, Kanu's legal team and associate gave their reactions over what transpired in court.
We thank God that the matter has eventually kicked off without rancor. You know, you needed to have been in court to observe the proceedings. All the parties cooperated, and PW1 testified. PW1 is Mr. AAA, as he was designated. He investigated the matter 10 years ago, and today he came and gave his evidence and tendered documents.
We are finally here. The government is finally having the trial that it desires. Our position still remains unchanged despite the ongoing trial, that our client is innocent of the charges, that the case is driven by political considerations, and in the end, the innocence of our client will be established.
I've seen a change in our system, a very dignified, honorable judge conducting every proceeding with respect, very respectful, honorable man. I was so impressed. I couldn't believe I was in there, listening to how he conducted the hearing.
The matter has been adjourned to Friday, May the 2nd, for cross-examination of the prosecution's witness by the defense counsel. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imerai.
In the aftermath of a fire outbreak that tragically led to the death of 2 residents at the Wanori IDP's resettlement camp, Borno State, Governor Babagana Zulum has extended financial assistance to the affected families. This followed a report by News Central on the plight of the victims at the internally displaced persons settlement. News Central's Umaru Kirawa has been following this development. His report.
A recent fire outbreak at Wanori IDP's camp in Borno State left 2 people dead and several displaced families devastated. With the flames put out, inhabitants have since begun the reconstruction of their makeshift houses. Borno State Governor Professor Babagana Umar Zulum, alongside members of the State Executive Council, visited the temporary settlement, offering both words of comfort and urgent financial relief to affected residents. The governor expressed deep sadness over the tragedy and pledged to resettle the victims soon, stressing that living conditions for displaced persons must be improved to prevent future incidents.
Deputy National Chairman Nafsana Bana Sirna, Bilenio China Fangana, Dalorie Commissioner, Shea Bana Sirna, Kashoe Bana Sirna, Abuna Bana Sirna, Samasora Skrimana, Amadai, Kunde is Canada, Mana Karani, Waltike, Tenda, Kanwada, Rochifanada, Daji, our Gawan, Yorasana, I don't wear Iskan to Basokaliko. The Alaras, Kriana, Alahura, Shirdiazaksu.
Community leaders praised the effort, noting that such initiative is critical to ensure the displaced persons pick up the pieces of their lives.
Ande amwano rere anma manyen manan zaman are zikandero bana sirina rero askrnyana inshallah amde local government kandi gaya nemba andezo senator andezo awlaso samma soro godenyana chiza daza kalari cham matsa sautu gamda zuwar andero godna sarna ma kodna.
The displaced families are holding on to the promises of the government to come to their aid. They are hopeful that this will help them resettle and rebuild their lives. In Wanori for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Let's go outside of Nigeria and tell you that Southern African troops have started evacuating from the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, where they had been stranded since the January offensive by the M23 armed group. The 16-nation Southern African Development Community decided last month to end its deployment to the mineral-rich country after 17 of its soldiers were killed in the conflict. The SADC official confirming reports in Southern African newspapers said the soldiers are moving by road to Tanzania. The Rwanda-backed M23 has taken control of large swathes of North and South Kivu provinces since the group resurfaced in 2021 and made major advances in recent months, including capturing the key provincial capitals of Goma and Bukavu. The latest from Canada, Prime Minister Mark Carney led his Liberal Party to a narrow victory in Canada's pivotal election on Monday. He has now secured a fourth term in power for the party and a renewed mandate to lead the fight against President Trump, who overtrade and the nation's sovereignty. Carney struck a combative tone towards the United States during his acceptance speech in the early hours of Tuesday. While the Liberals won control of Parliament, they looked set to fall just short of a majority, with a handful of races in Canada's 343 electoral district still uncalled. For this conversation, I have with me Hanat Singh, co-founder at Nest Campaign. We also have Alexander Von Vugen, a field engineer resident in Ontario. Joining in is Colin James, a regional councillor, Kitchener. Good to have you all on the news. I will start with you, Hanat, and just ask, to be clear up front, was Carney's win defined by Trump's annexation threats and trade war?
I mean, absolutely. The ballot box question in this election for Canadians was Donald Trump, was U.S. tariffs. That was the election, which was all about. And both parties tried to put a narrative in front to explain how they could be the best to stand up to the threats which Canadians face at this point. This is an important threat. Nobody's taking it lightly, and that was the ballot box question. And of course, as we know, that Mark Carney has won the government for the fourth term for the Liberals. They came back behind from the third position in the polls, and this victory definitely is historic for the country and definitely for the Liberal Party as well.
In his victory speech, Colin, Carney declared that the old relationship between Canada and the U.S. is over. He also said that Trump's want to break Canada and subsequently vowed to beat Trump's trade war. Any ideas, perhaps, how he plans to beat Trump?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, this election was very clear that we will never be the 51st state at all. And I think in terms of that statement, I mean, we have been friendly neighbors for years when you think back to, you know, even at the times of when Canada was establishing itself. We have always been friendly neighbors. And with Trump's, you know, trying to annex us, trying to over-tariff us, I think that it is really the response to that is not going to be okay for our country. And, you know, how I think this will be navigated when it comes to things like tariffs. Are we going to be dealing more with, you know, interprovincial trade, which I think we absolutely should? And I think the other thing to think about, too, is looking at where there are opportunities with our international friends as well. So I think with his statement, you know, things have changed. Things have definitely changed for Canada, for our relations to our neighbors, and we're going to be looking at, and I think Prime Minister Carney will be looking at what are we going to do for our own country within, and also where there are opportunities that we can leverage as well.
Alexander, how are Canadians perceiving Carney's win, and what do you think are their expectations from his leadership?
Well, historically, globally, not just for Canada, but whenever a nation is at war, they rarely change their leadership. In the case of Carney, he was new in the game with the removal of Trudeau, and we are technically in a trade war. And I think a lot of Canadians were intimidated by Trump's comments, as earlier mentioned, and They wanted to change. There's no doubt about that. Had this election happened prior to Trump being elected, clearly the PCs would have won. They were ahead in the polls by about 20%. We're very close now. Although the Liberals have a minority government, they're still the majority and have the vote. But I think it's going to be a catalyst to more with partisan negotiation. One thing Trump's threats have done is he's united Canada. Canadians have never been so patriotic and united since the Second World War. And that's a good thing. In terms of finding new course of business, we're a net exporter. We have some of the greatest natural resources in the world. I think we have to exploit that, and I think we have to fill the vacuum left by American trade tariffs with our partners in Europe and our partners in the Far East, including Japan, China, and Korea.
All right, let's come back to you, Hannett, and just look at Carney's experience as a central banker and his campaign promises to expand overseas trading relations. What specific strategies do you think he will employ to reduce Canada's reliance on the U.S. market?
I think that's a great question. So historically, as we talked about, the United States has been the biggest partner. And I think a lot of us were sleeping at the wheel when Alexander also talked about the opportunities Canada has in terms of natural resources, in terms of services, technology. There's a huge potential for Canada to be a net exporter of a lot more services and technology to our partners, which are aligned with us on the global stage. So Carney's actually already talked about Australia and New Zealand. The fact that the first trip he took as the Prime Minister out of the country was to Europe was to show and mark a statement that he is well liked in Europe and he is able to build new bridges for Canada when it comes to our European allies. So absolutely, I think coming out of this trade war, regardless of what turns out of this and what happens with the United States, at the end of it, most Canadians, in fact, all Canadians would want a stable, natural, beneficial relationship with the United States. But this has allowed us to look at our international partnerships in a new light. And I think Europe, Australia, New Zealand, a lot of partners in the Far East would definitely be all up for grabs. And there could be meaningful conversations on the international stage for Canada.
Colin, what do you think will be the top domestic policy priorities for Carney's government, aside trade, of course?
Yeah, so I mean, he's an economist. So the one thing we need to do is think about our economy and local economy. And I think in terms of what the biggest thing across Canada is, it's uniting us, really looking at the resources we have internally and how are we going to benefit ourselves internally. One of the things with this government as well is the opportunity to work with potentially, other parties to ensure that this gets done, because we know that with the minority government, you won't be able to do potentially what is needed without the collaboration and cross-partisan working together. So I think when it comes to the biggest thing, I mean, it is our economic survival right now. And I think we saw that with the voters. We saw that with this turnout, that we know that without a strong, thriving, vibrant economy, our future sustainability needs to be the focal point for this. So how do we build our economy? We're a strong manufacturing, especially in Ontario, thinking about that historically and even now, leveraging some of those natural resources, and again, that interprovincial trade. And I think when we look at things like procurement policies as well, how are we going to benefit from those in this climate in our country?
All right, Alexander, talk to us quickly your thoughts on what should be his priority, at least in the first 100 days.
Well, I think he's going to have to set aside some of the Liberal policies of stopping the pipelines in Canada, both to the east and the west. We have LNG we can export to Europe through our east coast. We have both LNG and crude oil we can export to the Far East on our western coast. That has always been held up by the Liberals. I think that the pressure with the landslide victory of in the west of PCs in Alberta and Vancouver, British Columbia, will indicate that. So there'll be pressure on Carney to set aside some of the former restrictive environmental policies that the Liberals had. I think the mistakes of the previous Liberal regime was to overdo or over accentuate our immigration policies. I personally feel that it's not that we should eliminate them. We need immigration to Canada. I think we should be a little more selective as to who we let in and have a stronger vetting process of those that we let in. With what Trump is doing in the States with the universities and the cutbacks at Harvard and other prominent schools, I think Canada has to take advantage of that. We can attract the best brain power in the world and build on our foundation here of technology and resources, and the fact that we're pretty nice people globally.
Alexander, I wish we had more time, but thank you very much for speaking with us. Collins and Hannah, thank you as well for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Business News is next after this break. Stay with us. Joanna has business updates for tonight. Joanna, over to you.
That's right. The FIRS is ensuring consistency and streamlining reconciliation to tax payments nationwide. I'll tell you how after this break. The Federal Inland Revenue Service has directed banks across the nation to promptly identify and shut down all unauthorized tax and levy collection accounts that bypass the Tax Pro Max system. In a public announcement signed by FIRS Chairman Zach Adedeji and shared with media on Tuesday by his special advisor on media, Dari Adekombi, the agency stressed that this measure is aimed at improving transparency and efficiency in tax collection processes. The statement, titled Directive to Close Unauthorized FIRS Tax Collection Accounts, outlined the initiative's goal of ensuring consistency and streamlined reconciliation of tax payments nationwide. However, the notice did not specify a timeline for banks to complete the closure of these unauthorized accounts. And the National Bureau of Statistics has unveiled its inaugural set of price data gathered through a crowdsourcing initiative aimed at enhancing the accuracy and timeliness of price monitoring across Nigeria. This was revealed in a press release issued by Folorunsho Alisomi, the head of public relations on behalf of the Statistician General of the Federation. The crowdsourcing program, which began several months ago, collects daily price data from a broad range of sources, including open markets, supermarkets, local shops, street vendors, bulk stores, and major retail outlets. The data collection has covered all 36 states, the Federal Capital Territory, and every senatorial district in the country. Coming now to the local bourse, of course, an interruption on the upward rally on the markets. The market is down today 17 basis points. As we can see demonstrated, the market is down 17 basis points. All share index is at 105,931.18, and market capitalization is at 66.577 trillion. A fair performance if you come to the sectoral performances. I believe the banking sector is up 1.30. Insurance is up as well. Oil and gas is up. Eterna held up this sector specifically. Consumer goods as well. Nigeria Breweries is doing its thing. They're driving that sector upwards. And industrial goods is flat. Despite all this green, we're seeing the market still experience a downturn today. That is it on Business Tonight. I am Joanna Mustafa. Tonight continues with Felicity.
Tunde Koiki, what do we have in sports tonight?
Yeah, Felicity, I'm sure you can hear that silence all across Nigeria and Lagos. That's because Arsenal lost tonight, and thankfully all of us can sleep very well. We'll talk about all that and much more after the break. Hello and welcome to sports. Unified heavyweight champion Alexander Usyk shrugged off accusations of cheating and fakery and said he was ready to become the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world for a second time when he fights Daniel Dubois at Wembley Stadium on the 19th of July. The fight will be a rematch of the controversial August 2023 low-blow clash in Wrocław, Poland that Usyk won after being allowed to recover for what the referee ruled as a shot below the belt. Now, Britain Dubois has since acquired the IBF belt vacated by the Ukrainian, who still holds the WBC, WBA, and WBO versions after beating Tyson Fury for the undisputed title in May last year. At a press conference earlier today, Dubois' trainer, Don Charles, accused Usyk of conning the referee and the boxing world and that he deserved an Oscar award for his acting. Here in Nigeria, power and skill were on display at the first edition of the Ibijoke Sanwo-Olu Arm Wrestling Championships held at the Indoor Sports Hall of the National Stadium in Surulere today. In the women's final, reigning African Games 80-kilogram plus champion Olubisi Oyewusi defeated Blessing Ogunbore to walk away with a medal and 500,000 naira. The tightly contested men's final was won by Tobiloba Adedokun, reigning 100-kilogram plus African Games gold medalist, who defeated African champion Idowu Yunusa to win 1 million naira. Speaking at the end of the event, Adedokun and Adewusi described the standard of the competition as very high and good preparation for the African Arm Wrestling Championships coming up in July in Abuja.
I feel overwhelmed. I feel like a champion. I just feel on top of the world. Actually, I'm not surprised because I feel like I just came here to train. It's something I do every day. This is my yard, this is my lifestyle, so this is it.
Well, ahead of the Africa Junior Swimming Championship scheduled for the 29th of April to the 3rd of May 2025, the Nigeria Junior Swim team has arrived in Cairo, Egypt, venue of the tournament. The team, which consists of 14 swimmers, 8 boys and 6 girls, and coached by Yellow Yeya and his assistant Labake Orireton, was led by the president of the Aquatic Federation of Nigeria, Chinonye Aliu, Secretary General of the Federation, Taiwo Oris, as well as parents of the swimmers also made the trip. The 2025 edition of the championships is expected to feature hundreds of swimmers from across Africa, making it a highly competitive event. Team Nigeria will compete in various individual and relay events across different age categories, and it is the largest contingent in the Nigerian history. And that's all we have on sports tonight. It's back to Felicity.
In entertainment, popular Lagos socialite Emeka Okonkwo Daniel, popularly known as E-Money, has reportedly been arrested by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, for alleged abuse of naira and defacement of foreign currencies. The arrest occurred on Monday night at his residence in Lagos. E-Money is accused of spraying US dollars at a social event, and act that violates, of course, Nigeria's Foreign Exchange Act. EFCC has launched preliminary investigations into the case and plans to charge E-Money in court after the inquiry is completed. He has been flown to Abuja, from what we hear, for further interrogations. While EFCC spokesperson Dele Oyewale declined to comment, sources within the commission have confirmed the arrest and ongoing investigation. Specific details of the event where the alleged currency spraying took place remains undisclosed. But this is, would I say, the second culprit, let's call it that, ever since Bobrisky's, case. And what is controversial now is everyone knows VDM. He's come out to say that the EFCC picking who they arrest, pointing at the popular Okoye boys who have been seen on camera spraying money. And I'm like,
is priorities. Priorities. We have bigger fish. We have politicians who need to be investigated, who need to be arrested.
Right.
They are walking free. And then people who are having fun in a hard economy. Priorities, that's my view. I'm not saying if he did it that he was right, but I'm just thinking priorities for EFCC.
I mean, I agree. It's a part of the celebrations, unfortunately, in several events to spray this money. But you know what they say, you got to follow the law.
Yes, I agree on that.
Well, that's definitely the biggest story in entertainment. I wish we could take some more, but we're out of time. My name is Sam Dandy. That's all for tonight.
And that's the news tonight. Do send us your eyewitness report to the number showing now on your screen. We'd love to hear from you as well on social media platforms at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. As always, thank you very much for your kind company. We appreciate it. Have a good night.